Hi, I'm Manda McKay. I'm a professional artist and I'm making these videos to give you tips to help enhance your creativity regardless of your level of expertise. So whether you're just starting out with a creative hobby or maybe you're really advanced as an artist, either way, these tips are meant to help everybody. So I'm starting out today with what's actually my very earliest tip about creativity, from when a friend asked me probably 20 years ago if I could give him some tips. And really, I just had this one tip that I came up with. And it's kind of not really the opposite of brainstorming, but very different from brainstorming. And as of this morning, I have named it brain questing. But brain questing is different from brainstorming in that you're on a quest to keep going with a specific idea. So brainstorming is useful if you just have no idea where to start with something, like you want to paint something and you have no idea what. Brain questing would be if you already know what you want the painting to be about, and maybe you just don't know how you're going to portray it. So the whole point of the brain questing is that you're going to keep going instead of just trying to come up with a few different ideas. Keep going until you've come up with 20 or 30 different ideas. And I think that's the difference. I remember telling my friend a long time ago, that's the difference between people who are naturally very creative and people who don't really consider themselves to be creative, is that the people who are naturally creative seem to understand that you're probably not going to get a great idea in just one or two tries. You're going to have to keep going with it and maybe go through dozens of ideas before you come upon the best one. And the name that I've came up with for this brain questing is a perfect example of this technique in action. A couple years ago, I was trying to come up with a name for this technique, and I wanted it to be something that somebody wasn't already using. I wanted it to be an original name, and I was hoping to have it be, something similar enough to brainstorming, but then to contrast that it was different from brainstorming. So I tried all these different words, all these different terms that I could think of, using the word brain, like brain hiking, brain trekking, for example. And every time I came up with one that I kind of liked, I Googled it. And almost every single one had already been taken. So I kept going, and I came up with probably 10 using the word brain, and then I thought, well, okay, how about mind? So then I did the same thing with like mind trekking, mind hiking, mind pathing, anything that I could think of, mind travel, like anything that I could think of, again, that would convey the same sort of thing. And again, frustratingly, every single one was already taken. So hopefully you can see how I have to keep going. And that I wasn't able to get this, the name that I was happy with that said what I wanted to say in just a couple of tries. And eventually I came up with thought trekking, and that was probably the 30th one I came up with. And so thought trekking, I thought, okay, that tells what I want it to say. So that was good enough. Now this morning, I did another one of my creativity tips, which is to look at something with fresh eyes. I recently did a video about that. So I had come up with this name maybe a year and a half ago. I mean, it's been a long time. And I decided to just kind of look back over using yet another one of my techniques, which is to keep an ideas notebook and write everything down. So I had a file on my computer where I had come up with all these different names. So I was able to look back over what I'd already come up with, all the names that had failed, and then also I was looking at it with fresh eyes, which basically just means, you've tried your best to come up with some ideas, and you're not really happy with any of them, or maybe you're happy but you think you can do better. So you put it away for a couple days, or in this case, more like a year and a half, and then come back and look at it and see if you come up with something new. And so that's exactly what happened. So then this morning I thought, okay, questing, brain questing, and I Googled that and that was not taken. So it may not be the best name in the world, and my strong point as far as creativity, I think, is coming up with ideas for paintings and photos and things like that, not really writing. But I am happy with the title. I think it says exactly what I want it to say. It uses the word brain to contrast with brainstorming. And then also questing, that since that means that you have a particular thing in mind and you're going after it, you just keep going on this quest until you find this thing that you're looking for. So brain questing, hopefully you like that title, or at least you think it says what I wanted it to say. Let me know in the comments. But again, so brainstorming is something that you would use if, let's say, you wanted to write a song and you just have no idea where to start. You're like, okay, I just want to write a song about something, I don't even know what, and that's where brainstorming would come into play, as you just come up with a bunch of random ideas and they're going off in all different directions. And maybe you're thinking about, okay, what about a love song? Maybe I want to do something about a breakup. Maybe I want to do something that no one's done before, just whatever. And you're just coming up with all different ideas. And again, even with brainstorming, you probably will need to do more than 2 or 3 ideas before something, really works. But then brain questing, if you're writing the song and you already know that you want the song to be about loss, for example. So that's where you would just kind of keep going with what are all the different ways that you could be writing about loss in the song. And, maybe you want some kind of a phrase that would kind of summarize what it is that you're trying to say, and you're going to work it into the song, maybe put it in the chorus, who knows. But that's exactly where the brain questing would work better than the brainstorming, because you're just coming up with one thing after another that's just along the same path, basically, until you hit upon something that you like. And again, writing it down in some form is extremely helpful. If it's going to be a really long file, maybe you're sitting at your computer or something, or your phone, whatever, and keeping it in a file there, and maybe you actually have a physical notebook, whatever works for you, but writing it down will be very helpful and help keep you focused. And then, of course, if you really don't come up with anything you like, put it aside for a couple days and come back to it with fresh eyes. But I really think this is, like I said, it's my earliest tip that I ever gave somebody, and I really do think that just the whole idea of don't give up after 2 or 3 tries. You keep going, and it might take dozens of tries before you come up with something that you like. And I've used this throughout my whole life, and I've told a lot of people about this already, and now I'm telling you. So hopefully you will find this brain questing technique to be useful. Let me know what you think in the comments. And again, my name is Manda McKay. Thank you so much for watching.